We live in a world immersed in fantasy, this mental escape that we take from reality. There are a couple of fantasies that a lot of Christians have when it comes to church, and I want to lay those out and discuss what they are and why they're an issue and what we need to do about it. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are some fantasies that Christians have in regard to church that you've seen in your experience? Here's the first. The church is here to meet my needs. I'm going to church hop. I'm going to examine the programs, and I'm going to see which ones have the things for me. Which ones make me the happiest, which ones make me the most comfortable, which ones leave me the least challenged. Let's be totally fair. This is not every Christian. This is not every new person who walks in the door, but it's a very prevalent view of church. That church is like the mall. We go shop to shop, or like going online to Amazon, Target, Walmart.com, BestBuy.com, etc. It's like you're window shopping for the kind of products and services that you most desire, that make you feel the most comfortable, that make you feel the most valuable. It's like church is a commodity, and it's here for your pleasure. Nothing could be further from the truth. Jesus did not come and create a church that was a consumer affair. He created a church that was a living organism, a body that has give and take, that has ebb and flow, that one day you'll pour into and one day you'll take out of. One day you'll consume some of the energy that is put out there because you need some help or you need some support or encouragement. Another day you find yourself pitching in to help the next guy. It's life, it's family, it's a community. It's not a commodity. That's a really hard one to overcome because it is just America, right? And that Americanism just weaves its way right into the church. And on the church end, we have a problem because we have developed ways to very readily adapt and receive people who are coming at it from that perspective, because on the church end, there's a codependency. They're looking for something that makes them comfortable, and the church is looking for people to fill volunteer slots and to be able to give to meet the budgetary needs of the church. And so there's a real codependency that enables that fantasy to perpetuate itself for generations. We have to break that fantasy by breaking the codependency, by examining and explaining exactly what it is that's going on, which is what I just did in the last 20 seconds. That one really, really needs to go. Okay, that's number one. Fantasy number two, this one's huge. It's called, the church is here to do my job for me. I go to the serving church. I go to the loving church. I go to the church on mission. We're all about mission. I was once a part of a church that had a bus ministry and bussed in like 100 kids a week. Back in the day, it was like 500 kids a week, way before my time. We're an evangelistic church. I mean, look at all the people that you see, okay? Well, what percentage of people are involved in this evangelistic outreach? Like 10%? 5%? Okay, but there's a perception that we're an evangelistic church. I'm an evangelistic person because I support an evangelistic church. The church is doing my job for me. So I don't see a need to go reach my neighbors. That's what the ministry's for. I don't see a need to be benevolent. That's what the ministry's for. I don't see a need to get my hands dirty. That's what the program is for. That's why we hired those people in the first place. That's why I give on Sunday, in order for someone else to do the thing that God told me to do. It's absolute fantasy. It is not in tune with reality that you can just hand over your God-given responsibilities to a program or to an institution or to a paid staff member or whatever. No, God still expects you to do the things that He has called you to do. Okay? Like utilizing your gifts in the body, like serving the body, like building one another up, like loving each other, like forgiving each other, like bearing each other's burdens, like making disciples. You know, all these things, taking care of the widow and the orphan and the needy and the poor. These are things we all have a responsibility to actually participate in. And we can't do everything all at one time. I understand. I'm not trying to just beat you up here, beat myself up here, but we need to understand that if we develop an attitude that says the programs of the church are here to replace my individual God-given responsibility to the body, church body, and community, then I'm way off base. It's absolute fantasy land. That's not how a body operates. Read 1 Corinthians 12. Bodies don't operate by 2 or 3 parts of the body doing all the work of the body. My body cannot walk across the room if just a couple parts are working. The whole thing has to work together to ambulate, right, across this room. That's how the church body works. No one can do your job for you. Don't give up your job to someone else to do it for you. Another thing that goes along with that little side trail is the church loves to hand over its responsibility to third parties, to the government, to other organizations, to the universities. It's like we need to be able to train in-house and do all the things that God has called us to do on a local level. Number 3, the church is here to save my soul. I go to church, I give my money, I show up weekly. That's better than like 80% of the population. I'm probably pretty good. That's fantasy land. Just because you go to church doesn't mean anything. It just means that you were there. That's all it means. It means that you weren't somewhere else, okay? Well, here all the time. I'm a good person. I'm better than the next guy. I do all these good things. Look at Cornelius, Acts 10. He was a good dude. He did good things. He helped the poor, did all this stuff, but he still needed to come to Christ. All that good stuff didn't do a hill of beans of good for him apart from Christ. Attending church doesn't do a hill of beans of good for you apart from Christ. The church doesn't save. Jesus saves. The church is the place where the saved gather. The church doesn't save. It's not its role. It has no mechanism for it. It has no authority to save. It has no authority to forgive sins. Only Jesus can do that. So that's the third fantasy, is that the church is here to save my soul. Hey, I'm part of a church. I'm in. I'm going to get to heaven one day and judgment and be like, I was part of a church. I attended like twice a month. That should be enough, because most people aren't doing that. And that puts us rationalizing our fantasy, and because we're comparing ourselves to other people and what other people are or are not doing, which is totally false, totally fantasy land. And one way you know you're living in fantasy land is you make all kinds of excuses to allow it to continue. And the church also allows us often to make all kinds of excuses to allow these things to continue, because there's not much question often in a lot of churches. If you just keep showing up and keep giving your money, maybe volunteer for something once in a while, maybe never, you're never going to be called out on that because you showed up and you gave your money, and that means the church can carry on and everybody's happy. But that's not the way God designed it. And that means that in some instances that the church leadership can operate in fantasy land, where the church leadership has a series of fantasies about the members that if only we could just get more people here, then we would be a growing church. We'd be more pleasing to God. We'd be able to engage in more mission and ministry. It's like, well, maybe there's more that you could be doing just the way you are. You can't wait on more people to do what God told you to do. Do what you can do with what you've been given. That's the parable of the talents. And so there's a lot of codependency between the church and the members, the leadership and the members, on the way all these fantasies are allowed to perpetuate. They don't get called out, because if you call those things out, you might lose some people, and then you might lose your ability to be sustainable, and then you won't be present, and then you're going to have to let go your paid staff, and then the whole thing seems to unravel. But you can't let people live in fantasy land. Can't stay there. It's not a healthy place to be or live. And another little lie we tell ourselves to keep ourselves there is, well, I'm a good person. I do good things. I help people out. I'm a good person. Well, but do you really trust Jesus? Are you really living for him? Are you following what he said? I'm not talking works righteousness. I'm just saying that's the lifestyle of someone who truly is a Jesus person. So let's tune into reality. Let's not be afraid to call out falsity, falseness, fantasy, to be able to shed light and put truth in where there is darkness, where there is delusion, where there is self-deception. These are all self-deceiving things, and we need to speak truth into it. So don't live in fantasy land. It will eat you up. As much as you think it feels good, it's comfortable, no one's bothering me, you will not grow in fantasy land. Your faith will not get stretched in fantasy land. That's why it's fantasy land, because it's not challenging to you. It is completely agreeable to you, and that's why you want to stay there. But it's the worst thing you could possibly do. So let's be honest with ourselves, and let's be honest with the people in our churches. Thanks for watching. Put up another video on church. Hope you watch it. And if you haven't hit like or subscribe, let's get to 11,000. We'll be there soon. Y'all take care.